Sorry. No, so just to welcome everyone to this month's VIA webinar. What we're trying to do this month and hopefully over the next few months is have some really interesting speakers come and talk to us about different areas of business and different areas of the industry. We really want to make these webinars informative for people. For members, we will be recording these, and hopefully, if our technology works, we can post these into a member exclusive area for you, so you can come and check them afterwards. Today, we'll get straight into the presentation. So we have Russell Phillips, Director of Automotive Employment New Zealand. There's probably not many people in the industry who don't know of Russell. He has been in automotive employment recruiting since about 1991, and he has built up a fantastic team providing all sorts of recruitment advice, immigration advice, and employment relations advice. If there's anything to do with recruiting, hiring, dealing with anyone in the automotive sector, Russell knows about it. So Russell's going to give us a run through of the market and a few other things today. I will shut up and pass over to Russell, but if you do have questions, throw them into the chat, and we will work on the questions at the end of the presentation. I'll turn myself off so people don't have to see me. Over to you, Russell. Thanks.
All right. Thanks kindly, Greg, and thanks everyone for attending. It's a pleasure to present to your members. I'm hoping our presentation brings some valuable insights. Certainly, that's the intention. And I don't know about you, but before we get into it, what an amazing weekend with those auroras. I just a truly incredible sight to see that as far up as Auckland. I can only imagine what it must have been like for any of you that are further south. While putting the presentation together, I felt it would be valuable for you to know that we produce a written labour market report and also remuneration estimates. Well, we do now at least. These are updated quarterly, and that's valuable for you. And it's valuable for us because I get to tell you that we've just launched our new website literally today with a whole pile of resource for dealers and the motor industry in general. If you go to automotiveemployment.co.nz at some stage, you'll see there that there's an employer hub. Within that employer hub, if you click on remuneration estimates, you can get that information. You can get that information straight away, and by simply just filling out a form, and you can download that labour market report, and at the same time you've got free access to remuneration estimates, and that's remuneration estimates across everything from technicians to salespeople, sales managers, literally dealer principals, the whole lot. So upgraded literally every 3 months. Now, let's quickly go through the agenda that what we're going to discuss. We're going to go through the 2023-2024 year at a glance, and then we're going to look at the month-on-month ed change by region, also the job ed change by region, the top 10 industries by job ed volume, and predictions about motor industry in economic growth, which might be a brave topic to address. Also, there's a window of opportunity I'd like to highlight to you. And today we've also got Automotive Employment New Zealand's licensed immigration advisor for any of you who have employers under AWV work visas. And Vanessa's going to talk very briefly about the April 7 changes. We're also going to talk about remuneration pressures, and then you'll have our contact details at the end. So anybody that does want to contact us, again, our website address is automotiveemployment.co.nz, but you can also speak to Greg, and Greg will make sure our details can be passed on, particularly if there's any topics that you'd like to discuss in more detail. So 2023 to 2024 year at a glance, the labour market's been a battle zone over the last year. There's no other way to describe it. We've been watching the labour market exceptionally close, and particularly so over the last few months. As fortune would have it, job board Seek released their latest insights on Friday, and their data largely matched ours. That might not sound that incredible, but the reality is we get our data from what's called an ATS system, and it's a software provider that provides us valuable insights. Seek also produce data, so we're able to put that together and come up with something that's pretty accurate. While it would be no surprise that there's a few less jobs out there, it's actually a whopping 30% down. Okay, so what that means is the 30% decrease refers to the number of national jobs advertised between April 24, 2023 and April 23, 2024. So basically a whole year. If it feels like there's less pressure on skill shortages, you'd be right, there is. If we have a look at this this next slide, which is the regional data, the areas least affected right at the moment are Gisborne, down 14%, and that's probably got to do with the fact that it can be quite difficult to fill vacancies there. So I think that there's a bit of a backlog. Hawke's Bay, which is 16%, obviously, I think the number of jobs there are probably still elevated from Cyclone Giselle. In Otago, 17%. I'm a little bit uncertain why Otago's held up that well, but it doesn't surprise me. It's could be a resilient region at times. On the other end of the scale, if you're sitting on the west coast, job ads are down 54%. Wellington's the next most impacted with 44% less vacancies. So much of this is in Wellington's occurred because the public sector cuts, of course. So that doesn't necessarily mean to say that that's over the motor industry, but I will bring the analogies together. While there are less roles advertised in the motor industry, the automotive sector has held up reasonably well considering. Today, as an example, one job board has 1,203 automotive vacancies. The other job board will remain nameless for its infamous layered pricing, which seems to be now affecting the automotive sector. Out of interest, they've had that layered pricing structure go on in the recruitment industry for 4 years. We're 400% dearer than what we were 4 years ago. If anyone wants to talk about that and as a different topic, I'm more than happy to do so, because it was a big issue to us, and I'm sure it's a big industry to the motor industry as it hits you. Either way, it's a lot of roles, and the reason that we've got so many of those roles, despite the fact that the country's in recession, is this backlog of historical shortages. Each quarter, representatives from our own industry, being the recruitment and consulting services industry, we meet to discuss the labour market. That's why I'm in Christchurch today. The next meeting's tomorrow, and we're preparing for it. So some of this data that we've already put together, comes from not just our company, but multiple different companies in the recruitment industry. The consensus is that once all the noise from the public sector cuts die down, we'll experience additional pressure on skills which are traditionally hard to source. For the retail and wholesale vehicle importation market, it's our predictions. If our predictions are right, the first signs of the turn are going to be noticeable from October, the fourth quarter of 2024. It may take another quarter past that for you to start to feel the bite of the shortages in areas such as logistics and sales. But, if you're already feeling that it's difficult, for an example, to hold a compliance people or or salespeople, or that's going to be exacerbated as the market moves on. Although candidate application numbers are up and the number of jobs is down, two other things happen in a downturn. Training always takes a hit. Now, we know we should do more about training, but as soon as we hit a downturn, more of us than would like to admit stop the training. And even if you train yourself, it doesn't matter because other people aren't trained. The other thing that happens is, and I don't know why, because these recessions never actually last that long, but every government for the last 4 decades has tightened immigration policies during a turndown. This is obviously to save New Zealanders' jobs, but I think in this cycle, I think coalition agreements have also had a lot to do with these changes in immigration policies. The trouble we have in the New Zealand motor industry is that except for the 3 months in the middle of the global financial crisis and lockdown 1 in the global pandemic, the motor industry has always had shortages. I've tracked this back to 1956, a number of years ago, and so these shortages have gone on for 68 years. The question is will the motor industry and the government make all the same mistakes ahead of return to economic growth? There's nothing sure. It's going to roll out again a bit like this. Several larger companies, they're going to cancel this year's intake of apprentices. Smaller companies are also going to pull back on training, a different type, but they are. Okay, car companies will run with smaller teams of sales personnel and other staff, particularly salespeople. Okay, and very, very quickly, this amounts to hundreds of roles over a few months. What goes down comes up, and of course we all start getting really busy again, and we start growing our businesses. So it becomes a triple whammy: less training, tightening of immigration, and growth. So something to watch out for. Most likely, the reported unemployment statistics will continue to rise potentially till mid-2025 and even possibly late 2025. It takes months for Statistics New Zealand to assemble this data. My guess is unemployment is going to rise, the figure I've got is actually 5.5% to 6%, okay? But everyone disagrees with that. They reckon it's going to rise to about 5%. My view is it's going to rise slightly higher than that, and it's going to scare the living daylights out of everybody as the newspapers report this and blow it out of all proportion. But this is what happens every single time we have a downturn. Okay, the numbers actually change, and those that are the type of people that we employ, the genuinely more experienced workers, okay, obviously that market starts to tighten up. So if it's the salesperson, the F&I person, the compliance tech, the automotive technician, the motor body repairer, the panel beater painter, all of those skills start to come back first. So when you continue to see that rise in unemployment, don't be scared about that. That's normal. That's just the backlog of statistics that comes through. There's a window of opportunity that the labour market presents. Okay, and it's a big opportunity. What we do know is that the large corporates are discussing two things. The first observation is that there's been way less motor industry redundancies in this cycle than former downturns. It's not as deep. It might feel that way, okay, but from a labour market perspective, at least, we're not seeing the big numbers of redundancies, and I hope we don't. But that's the first clue of what's going to happen when the economy turns. The second observation is we're receiving multiple inquiries from large corporates discussing planned acquisitions and expansion. Okay, not one or two of them. We're talking about companies and the big, retail franchises, the branded dealerships, repair companies. There's a lot of these companies that are actually talking to us about the skills that they're wanting to need, and this is not just something that's being talked about. It's actually happening. They're listing those positions. And in 32 years, I've not seen this in a recession, and I've been through quite a few of these recessions now. So it's different, and I'm not sure why, but it's different. Normally, industries talking about making severe cuts to staffing levels and downturns, but we're as busy now as what we were 2 years ago. It could just be the backlog of skill shortages, or it could be that we expect the market to return to normal in a not too distant future. Either way, right at the time you may expect companies to pull back, they're planning, and not just planning, but moving forward. When the economy does take off, and I don't think that's too far away, we can learn now from what's happened in the past. Skills get hard to locate because of the triple whammy effect. If you're planning to expand when the market turns, or you're planning to grow your business, grab the skills now while you can. Okay, it's going to get tight, and it's going to get tight for those reasons that I've indicated. I think this is particularly relevant to the compliance sector, to the motor body trades, sales and support people, because these are the areas that are going to be most impacted during an economic turnaround for the motor industry. Most of the VIA's membership is involved in compliance to some degree. Many are involved in pre-sale preparation, such as panel and paint. For this reason, Automotive Employment New Zealand's qualified licensed immigration advisor has joined me, and I'm going to ask a few questions for her that are going to be relevant to your business. Have we got you there online, Vanessa?
You do.
Okay. Just very quickly, because I don't think that we want to get into too much legislation, okay, but can you tell me the changes that the government made in their April 7 immigration announcement?
Yeah, sure. So it was mainly aimed at the lower skilled roles, and they're getting shorter visas now. So they only get a 2-year visa, and then they've got to apply for a further 1 year for a maximum of 3. Then they've got to go home for 12 months. That's the big kicker. There's no extensions for those to the 5-year visas that were announced a while ago. They cannot do that.
Can I interject for just 2 seconds? This is level 4 and 5 roles, right? Yep. Okay, so level 4 and 5 roles, basically, if we employed a salesperson that's on a temporary work visa, what you're trying to say is they've really no longer got a pathway to residency. They haven't probably in the last year, truth be known, but they've no longer got a path to residency, and now they can only get a 2-year work visa with the ability to extend that by another year. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And it does include salespeople who aren't considered to be skilled, even though we know that they are. They also need to do an English language test when they apply for a job. So that goes with the visa application. It's a dumbed down version of the English language test they need to do for residency, but it's there all the same. And employers need to engage with WINS to put their roles onto their website as well, to make sure there's no job seekers looking for work. So those are the big changes to the lower skilled roles. For the higher skilled roles, if they're currently on a 3-year visa, they can get an extension for a further 2 years, but they're going to need an NZQA assessment or evidence of 3 years work experience, so things like pay slips and tax reports and so on. So everyone has to prove at least 3 years work experience.
So these are the automotive technicians and roles like that, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And can we just have the next slide, Joe? And in terms of accreditation, employers now need to advise Immigration New Zealand when a migrant leaves their job. And they've also introduced some harsher penalties for non-compliance of the things that you agreed to when you became accredited. A quick talk about the green list. There are 11 occupations that we thought were going on there, and this is including panel beaters and spray painters, and that has not eventuated. So panel beaters and spray painters are fortunately skill level 1 to 3, so they're actually level 3. So they can still get extensions if they're on a 3-year work visa.
Okay.
Or those applying now can get a 5-year visa.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, that's, I think that the message we need to get across to the VIA members is we see that there's going to be a real problem with panel beaters and spray painters moving into the future. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but, you know, the hourly rates that the motor body, the automotive refinishers and the panel beaters get from the insurance companies are actually quite low. Okay, and we perceive that that's going to create a real problem, not just a small problem, massive problem moving forward, because you know, training already lags behind in that sector. You remove the immigration, and they've actually been removed now. They can't get residency. There is no pathway unless you pay them 47. How much is it, Vanessa?
47.42 an hour for 2 years, or for 3 years, or 63.22 for 2 years.
Yeah, if I was I think if I was a motor vehicle dealer and I had a large operation, you know, where I was a big compliance centre, and I was processing big numbers of vehicles, I think that I would probably try and get ahead of that problem. In other words, when's it going to hit? Probably 6 months to a year. And in other words, it might even pay for you to look at you know, bringing in some in-house panel and paint services, because you may find that it just takes longer and longer to be able to get your vehicles processed. In other words, it could become a roadblock. You know, I know that's a bit contentious. You know, you might not all agree with me, but that's what I see, and it's based on the fact that there's a reducing demand. Now, let's talk about another area. I know that a lot of you employ automotive technicians in compliance operations, and from what I understand at least, Vanessa, the compliance sector, you know, particularly with inspectors, you know, we've had an issue trying to find these people for a very long time. We actually, didn't we have some good news a little while ago in terms of that? Where do you want to tell us about that? And I assume you know what I'm referring to there.
Yeah, I believe I do, Russ. So previously you could only use a trade certificate that was NZQA assessed in order to apply for your residency. It had to meet level 4 on our list, on our standards. Now you could also get a WOF or a COF certificate. You do need to be practicing that. You can't just get it and then not be doing inspections anymore. But that is another route for those that aren't trade qualified or have trouble finding their papers to get an NZQA assessment.
Okay, so what that means is at the moment when you're trying to find those skills, you're competing against all the franchise dealers and everybody that's got repair technicians. Okay, now this is actually quite good news for the compliance sector, because we can actually bring people in that are fully experienced. Okay, but they may just have difficulty getting securing employment in the big repair shops, because of the fact that they might not have completed an apprenticeship. See, a lot of people from overseas come in New Zealand under what's called Section 26D from South Africa and other countries, where they don't actually complete an apprenticeship, but their skills are equivalent. Now, if they can't get their qualifications assessed, then the compliance industry becomes a very, very positive area. Having said that, I think that the skill shortages that we're going to have with technicians is going to be typical of what we experience when we come out of a period of decline and start moving to growth. Clearly, it's going to get tighter. So if you can pick up the skills now, pick up the skills now. Let's talk about these remuneration pressures just for a second. Okay, I actually don't see that there's going to be a massive amount of pressure on remuneration over the next few months. In fact, I don't think we're going to see it for 6, 7, 8 months. Okay, so there should be no need for you to have to put yourself under the additional pressure of giving wage and salary increases outside those really good employees that are obviously struggling a bit. You know, there are some inflationary pressures, and people probably are coming to you and saying, you know, look, I need to earn more money because I can't pay my bills. You know, I've got no choice. You either give me more money or I go. There's not much you can do about that. You're still going to get a little bit of that. But in terms of the natural remuneration pressures, because the labour market's freed up a little bit for the moment at least, I can't see there's going to be you know, any massive increase in those pressures. Having said that, this is a good opportunity for me to give our brand new website a plug. And it's an absolute thing of beauty, this website, and why it's an absolute thing of beauty is because it's absolutely beautiful that it's finished. It took me 6 months to do it. But if you go to the Employer Hub, if you want to know what's happening with remuneration, you know, we charge up to $3,000 or $4,000 for a remuneration scope for some of the larger companies, and you know, and admittedly they want customized knowledge, but for the most part, you can go to these remuneration estimates and you can actually see exactly what everyone else is paying in the market. Now, you've got to make your own call on these rates. Like, you might disagree with what, you know, Russell and Joe decide, you know, what people are being paid, and we're happy to be called out on that, right? I mean, I've been doing this a long time, 32 years, and our figures are generally based on the placements that are being made, okay, in real time. Okay, so we're making placements all over the country. We know what people are getting paid. We're getting, you know, hundreds and sometimes thousands of candidates a month approaching us for the jobs that we've got. So we've got, you know, some pretty solid figures that we can work off. I think you'll find on our remuneration estimates, you know, that's actually quite valuable for you if you're needing a bit of a guide. But you can also pick up the phone and, you know, you've got the numbers sitting there in front of you. You can see that you've got the mobile numbers for all of us, and you can get those contact details from Greg Epps or Malcolm, and we're happy to just take a call and be able to guide you on any of those areas. There's all sorts of things that we can consult on. And the labour market reports you'll find really valuable because they are updated every 3 months, and it does have information about what's happening in the motor industry. And if you're an employer, it's pretty important to be able to keep up to date with some of those things. So look, hopefully with a bit of luck, that's been at least a useful presentation for you, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, well, thanks, Russell. That was a great presentation. A lot of things in there that I certainly picked up on. The 30% decrease in jobs advertised is a massive number. The fact that your research has shown that there's been shortages in the automotive sector for decades now. I mean, it is something that I feel like we've talked about almost every year since I got into the industry about 10 years ago. I feel like that's been a topic of conversation. So it's really interesting to know that that's actually just been part of it. And I feel it's the lack of say mana that is given to roles in this industry. They're super important. I wouldn't want to see Chris Luxon try and fix my brakes, you know, but he's the Prime Minister. We're all meant to look up to him, you know, so I think people really they downplay the amount of skill that the people in our industry need to have. Also, really interesting your assessment on where unemployment might be going, and I think quite a good calming note that even if it hits 5% or 6%, I remember back in the day, you know economics courses that I'd taken, back 30 years ago, people were saying 5% was full employment. 5% unemployment was a rate that economists always thought was great, and we've been down around 3% unemployment. So I think we do need to take that broader view and understand that an increase of unemployment up to 5 or 6% is not necessarily going to be the massive impact on the economy that some people might. The
Yeah.
immigration changes as well. Yeah, you're right. The policy tightens when there's a downturn, because the idea is we want to keep jobs for people that are here, but um, you've got to keep bringing the talent in to keep things going. So that's going to be interesting to see how that impacts. Now, is there anyone out there? You raise your hand or throw a question into chat if you've got any questions for Russell. This has been a really. Oh, James has got his hand up.
Yep. Yep.
Hi, Russell. You
Hello,
probably
James.
remember
How are
me,
you?
I'm very
Yeah.
well, thank you. Yes, yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
that. Bit of a loaded question here. I've been working in the electric vehicle space now for like the last 6 or 7 years. My concern is with the whole demand and some of the factors in that area having dropped off a cliff since the end of December. The amount of money that's being invested in Australia and in Europe, the skills that we had are very much in danger of moving offshore quite quickly, and I can already see that happening. Any thoughts on that in terms of how we can retain that talent?
It'd be. I wish there was a voting panel here so that we could all, share the information. But look, probably one of the most popular conversations that I have at the moment, or more correctly, the team, because Joanne Robinson's the general manager of Automotive Employment New Zealand. So, Joanne's really close to that market. I am too, don't get me wrong, but Jo and her team, have been getting daily phone calls from companies saying, "Hey, look, we've just had someone that we've lost to Australia." But James, it's not just Australia that's the problem, right? Okay, yeah, we're losing some of our skills here, but what we're not seeing and what's not being talked about is that we used to have a really vibrant market from South Africa and from the UK. Now we still get that business, okay, and even if you don't employ skilled migrants yourself, this actually impacts you because the less skills that we have coming in from offshore, the more of us we've got fishing in the same pond. So if you only get your candidates from New Zealand and those skills are starting to dry up from offshore, that's a double whammy. We're losing people, across the Tasman because of a number of factors, including some of the pay rates and that they're paying over there, but we're also not attracting them in the same level. So what do we need to do? I mean, as an industry, we really do need to promote ourselves, and as a country, we need to. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be a few that agree, but by crikey, we've got to get our head down in the sand and we've got to start talking about the good stories again so that we can actually attract people and not lose them. But anyway, hopefully that went some way to answering your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Any others?
Yeah, thanks, James. Has anyone else got a question for Russell? I felt like I would have a bunch of questions, but it was such an information-packed presentation, Russell. I felt like every time I had a question come to mind, you actually answered it with the next sentence. So that was um, I think James had a really good question about retention and comparing ourselves to Australia. Is there beyond remuneration, are there qualitative things we could be doing in our workplaces that are perhaps and perhaps is it intergenerational, or do the younger
Yeah,
people coming through, are they looking for something outside just money? Is there any other things we could be doing?
yeah, Greg, this is probably, one of the most important sentences, of this whole presentation. Good question. Yes, there is things we should be doing. Okay. And this is my observation. In the non-franchise sector, which, I'm sure that there may be some franchise dealers here, but I'm assuming that the majority of our audience here is a non-franchise audience or involved in servicing the imported motor vehicle dealers. That is the case, Greg, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, we get a lot of feedback as recruiters. Okay. People come to us and they say to us, look, I want to be attached to a brand. Okay. And, and, to be fair, I think that the non-franchise dealers have as much to offer, if not more, than franchise dealers. What you all need to be doing and is to be creating your own point of difference. Why would people want to work for you? It's going to take you months to develop this, right? Okay, there's all sorts of things that you can do that don't actually cost money. Okay, and it might be, I say that doesn't cost money, I mean, it's, the ladies in the company, for an example, they all need to be able to drop their kids off, to school, and they need to go to the parent and teacher meetings, and occasionally they need time off for the sports days and things like that. So when you know that they're going to take that time off, what you do is you actually offer it to them anyway. Okay, and you make it a benefit. It might be a situation where we can do remote working. If you've got an administration person, do something like, offer them a work from anywhere week, so they can go away, or early, early leaving pay. In other words, if they want to go for away for a weekend or something like that, make it formal, give them 6 days off per month, but come up with a structure, whatever it is, whatever you decide on, come up with a structure and create a company culture around the attraction of personnel, because it's not always money. You've got a choice. You can either just throw money at people, or else you can actually create a point of difference and professionalism, ahead of all your competitors, and you'll pick up the good skills. One of the things I'd love to do is have a bit of a talk about what I believe it actually takes to develop winning teams, and because over 32 years, I think I've learned quite a bit about that. But maybe that's another webinar for another day. Certainly creating that difference in your own business, to attract talent, and then going out to the market when you're advertising. That's really going to help. Yeah, we can help you do that as well. So there's all sorts of consulting that we're involved in. It's not just about supply of staff. It's consulting about how to lay your businesses, how to attract the people, how to put together a winning team, and as well as immigration advice, employment relations advice. We try to cover it all.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer, and I think actually it does set us up for having you back in 6 or 8 months. You've made a few predictions as well, and I think if the shortages start to bite at the start of next year, perhaps we do think about bringing you back to talk to people about how to create that work environment that that retains workers and keeps the good people you've got. So, but right now we've got about 15 minutes left, and I was going to give people just a general update on some of the stuff that Via's been working on. But I'd really like to thank you, Russell, and your team, Vanessa and Joanne. The information today has been fantastic. It's been really good to help us understand where things are going in the sector. And yeah, as we've said, people need to, if they've got questions, they can reach out to you. Whenever you come across a problem, going to an expert can get things solved much more quickly than if you sit around and just mull over it yourself and fret and never know what you're up to. Just go and get some good expert advice, and I don't think you could do any better than Russell and the team. So thanks very much again for your time, Russell.
That's right. Yep.
And yeah, we will definitely look forward to having you back again sometime soon to update us again on what's happening.
You better talk to your members and make sure they want me back, Greg. So, anyway, hey, look, thanks very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your webinar. Thank you very, very much indeed. All the best.
Thanks, Russell, Vanessa, Joanne. Right. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us for that. We do have a few minutes left where we were just going to give an update on some of the things that Via's been working on. Kit and Malcolm are with me. Probably the biggest thing at the moment is that we have clicked over into May. From the 29th of April, we have now been under the new exhaust emissions rule. So any vehicles border checked from the end of April needed to be Euro 5 or 2012 or later. So we are looking to see how that is going to be impacting on the market. We're still working our way through with NZTA to make sure that they can provide good information in the VERM around the various codes that are required. In fact, there has been some talk recently as well about where things sit with Tier 2, the US Tier 2, and how that works. Malcolm's been taking a few questions on that. So Malcolm, do you want to just give us a quick update on what you've been finding with US Tier 2 and the new exhaust emissions?
Yeah, well, US Tier 2 kicked off in the States in 2004. And in 2004, 25% of the production of motor cars had to meet the new emissions requirements. 2005 required 50% of the production, 2006 75%, and then by 2007 had to have 100% of the production met. So for the US, basically any car that's after 2007, whether it comes from a 2007 model year identified by the 10th character of the VIN number being 789 A, etc., will be fine. Otherwise, some of the other vehicles, providing they allude to the 2007 requirements on their EPA labels on the vehicles, and I'll just try and share a screen here to show you what an EPA label looks like. No, it's not doing it, sorry. But if anybody wants a example of a label, just flick me an email, malc@via.org.nz, and I will get you an example of the label to you. There's been some issues around the wording of some statements of compliance as well, where they've been referring to the being in bin 4 for California. Transport is actually a part of the Tier 2 requirements, but there's been some issues with NZTA, but we're getting on top of those. So if anybody has that issue, let me know and we'll see what we can do.
Great, thanks, Malcolm. The other main policy piece that's been ongoing at the moment is the government is reviewing the clean car standard. There's not much that we can say there at this point because we can't really be certain where the ministry is heading. They've come to talk to us about what we'd like to see. We've told them we want to see the weight adjustment removed on the clean car standard. They seemed to understand our reasoning there. You know, our reasoning is let's just have a uniform target. If it's X grams of CO2 and the vehicle we're bringing in is under that amount, then surely that's a great thing. And this weight adjustment has just been screwing with some of that stuff. So we've been really pushing on getting that removed. They don't seem open too much to changing next year's target. We have been working on them to talk about where those targets are going and how steep the drop off is and whether we can meet those. They have taken that information away. Of course, they've also been talking to the new car sector. We need to just wait for them to synthesize all that information through their processes and come out with something. But we would hope to hear probably mid-year or in the next couple of months as to whether or not there's going to be any major changes to the clean car standard. One thing that we have been pushing for is an exemption for vehicles being brought in for disability, modified for disabilities, and they do seem to be very open to that. I believe it was a National Party priority as well. So we think that will come through, but again, nothing's certain until we see something written on a piece of paper signed by the minister. For members, we will be having an AGM in June. We'll be sending information out to members about that. As I mentioned at the start, future webinars, we are looking to do more of these sorts of webinars where we have someone come and talk to us and provide us with information. I'm very happy for people to suggest speakers that they'd like to hear from that we could reach out to or topics that they want to look at. I've been thinking about perhaps getting people from, say, the insurance sector to come and talk about business insurance. Or people from the carbon emissions measuring sector who could help you with your carbon footprint, things like that. So those are the sorts of topics that we've been thinking to help you understand other elements of running your business. And the other thing that I've done recently is I had a look back over the numbers for the first 4 months of this year to see how things are going. And I think for our sector, for the used car sector, we're doing okay. Things have been stable for the first 4 months. Compared to new car sales, we've had about 34,500 used vehicles come in, 27,700 new car sales. So the new car guys are having it a bit tough at the moment. Although year on year, same period last year, new car sales have increased by over 9%. Used car imports for the same period have increased by 13%. So we're doing okay. It feels good. Russell had pointed out in his piece about some of the economic challenges that we might be facing over the next sort of 6 to 8 months. I do believe, we just need to try and survive, hold on. Things do seem to be okay at this point. I think that the used car industry has a real value to offer to people in a cost of living crisis where we are providing the affordable vehicles. But we need to keep pressing to make sure that we can tell people about the benefits of our used vehicles, and replacing the current vehicle they've got, because we know we still want to keep moving towards that ambition of refreshing the fleet and bringing those carbon numbers down. Regional performances have been interesting to look at as year over the past year. Manawatu Whanganui has increased by 55%. So I'm not sure what's been happening down there, but they're going great guns. Canterbury has increased imports 11% year over year. Otago's up 7%. Auckland was up 5.5%, but Wellington's been down 6.5%. And again, whether that has anything to do with the uncertainty down here in the capital with employment, I'm not too sure. Certainly, house prices have been all over the place, and interest rates. So interesting to see where those things have been going. I think that's everything I had. Kit, did you have anything that you wanted to report back on?
No. We'll catch up with the council on some policy pieces that we're working on, but other than that, no.
Yeah. So great. Well, thank you everyone for your attendance. As I say, we'll try and put more of these webinars on with content speakers, hopefully speaking to issues that are important to you. And as usual, we'll give you an update on what we've been up to. But for now, that's everything. And again, thank you all for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you again in a month's time. Thanks very much, everyone.